Neutral skips. This is a relatively new term, actually. I don't think people really used the phrase neutral skip before maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Pop open ye olden glossary and take a look. Skipping neutral. The ability for a character to go from a long range away to extremely close very quickly. Typically, you'll use a move that is pretty fast and probably also safe on block to do this. You know the zone where you're standing on screen and you're jockeying back and forth? It just immediately moves you from here to here. Slide you, skip you, tackle you, dash, teleport, whatever, into their face, and you're like, what's up? How goes it? But yeah, I mean, you guys are listing lots of examples in the chat room, stuff like Kai Stun Dipper RC, Yun EX Lunge Punch. The tweet that started a lot of frustration, I think, was pointing out Dash Light in Grand Blue, and then also pointing out Drive Rush in Street Fighter, and just being like, what's going on with these games? Just making neutral skips system mechanics. How could they, you know? Modern fighting games is the death of footsies and neutral. People say that about every fighting game, right? And why do they say that about every fighting game? Is for some reason, if your two characters are not just like shimmying across the screen at this range, people get so mad. They just assume it's like not a real fighting game or something. I just don't get it. There's lots of really strong options and ways to play, and forcing things with stuff like neutral skips is a really strong, effective way to play. They're part of the fighting game. In fact, they're one of the many options you can do in neutral, and being good with neutral skips makes your neutral good. Neutral skips are an important part about your own neutral and figuring out how to approach and get in. And if you're a character like Cammy or something, or Yun, and you're fighting JP, Chun-Li, or some character that's trying to zone you, I would hope you would use your neutral skips. Part of neutral is stuffing or intercepting or not dying to the neutral skip. And it's been like that in fighting games since the dawn of time. Thankfully, Lord Knight just like immediately drops a quote retweet almost 2 minutes long of just full of neutral skips. Like, look at this. Look at the oldest neutral skip of all time.
Yeah, he's inputting super every single time now.
He's smelling the game from right here. Like, literal full screen neutral skip. Classic. This guy just goes fucking, that's it. It's over. This match, dude. This match is so controversial. These two characters have to be playing the silliest looking neutral of all time. And people either loved or hated this match. Like, this is a great example. Like, these characters are not playing slow, walking back and forth. It's walking back and forth neutral, right? That's just not how this is. Yeah, look at this. I mean, there's not a lot of neutral being skipped here. Like, this is the death of footsies right here, right? Is this footsies? Is this neutral? Is this footsies right here? The worst part is that when Morgan's in Astral, she can approach so fast. Also, Chris G is kind of bad at doing Sulfus in this clip compared to some of like the later clips, honestly. His zoning patterns are way better later on, I think. And she still died. He gets way better at it. Chris G gets so good at it that's like unhinged. Look at this clip. Teleport. It's like Phoenix. It's like Dark Phoenix. Like, you just whoop, teleport, overhead, delayed low, teleport, get the knockdown, fireball, teleport. Playing some Nooch in Dragon Ball. Playing some Nooch. Boom. Nothing personal, kid. Honestly, truly, the problem people have with neutral skips tends not to be in games like this. It tends to be in slower games. Games like Street Fighter. Street Fighter is the one where people complain the most. But neutral skips are really common. They're really strong in lots of different fighting games. They're a valid option. This is the problem, I think, with the term neutral skip, is there's a negative connotation. Is like, ooh, you're skipping you're bypassing walking. They want you to stay over there where you are and not win. Like, they pick a character who has better normals than you, better zoning than you, better options in the mid-screen than you, better neutral than you. And then when you have the gall to be like, fuck it, I'm going to teleport in, they're going to be like, you would skip the neutral that I'm incredibly favored in. You would do such a thing? You would download a car? Like, it's like that vibe. How come when characters are designed to have strong neutral and win neutral, they can do that? But the minute you want to skip the neutral, it's like, oh my God, why are they making fighting games this way? But honestly, you have to detach your brain from this and understand that neutral is lots of things. It's lots of parts of the fighting game. Neutral is just any time you and your opponent aren't tangoing up close, basically, right? Which means neutral skips, it's zoning, it's mid-range stuff, it's fast advancing moves that get you near people. It's like a lot of stuff. It's because there's a shift towards instantly making your opponent guess before anything skillful is involved. It's a valid concern. I want you to know that when you say it's a shift, We're watching like a 30-year-old clip. This is not a paradigm shift. In fact, it's the opposite. This is just how games have always been. This is how fighting games have always been. If you want to say that it's a system mechanic thing, like people have said that about third strike parry, people say that about Street Fighter 4 focus attack. Like there's so many examples of things that people complain are system mechanics that allow you to do what you're describing. Without neutral, we're just playing RPS. Correct me if I'm wrong. Oh, I would love to. Do you think neutral between your opponent and yourself is not you making guesses and playing rock, paper, scissors? When you walk forward and then walk backwards and try to bait your opponent to hit a button, and then they hit a button and then you whiff punish it, was that not you playing rock to their scissors? When you walk in and walk back and then jump to beat a fireball and your opponent doesn't fireball and then they anti-air your jump in, is that not them playing scissors to your paper? Like part of neutral is making guesses about the things your opponent's gonna do. Like it's about understanding whether your opponent's gonna try to approach, whether your opponent's waiting for you to swing, whether your opponent is looking to approach in the air, approach on the ground, whether they're doing nothing, whether they're walking, blocking, whether you should be approaching. The bad thing that you don't like, that you think is forcing some kind of decision making, you're already making that decision making in neutral anyway. You just like it more. So it doesn't seem like it's as big of a problem. That's okay. But these are just decisions you're making in neutral as well. And like the RPS is weighted, right? If you're near your opponent, there are options that are more prevalent than if you're far away from your opponent. There's like different things that you could expect or look for. But like, yeah, that's how this all works. It's just very normal. That's all. The point I'm making is not every character should be Vega. The more you think about neutral skips as like some evil entity, the more you hurt your worldview about how fighting games are played. Truly, neutral skips are just moves you do in neutral. They're just moves. They're just stuff that you can do in the game that are pretty useful and strong. And understanding how to position yourself to deal with all of these strong options that people represent is so important. But also, why is it a problem if a system mechanic allows you to skip neutral? Is it a problem if a system mechanic helps you on defense? Or is it only when it skips neutral? I mean, a lot of modern games, that's true. They have extremely powerful cross-up protection and like unblockable protection. It's the same era where Street Fighter parry is like the best blocking you can do. It's so strong. Like that game has mega blocking. I gotta tell you, I have never played a game before when I try to mash on defense and it gives me a late throw tech. Like Granblue and Uni, they're coming out within a month of each other. Gotta be two of the most blocking games of all time. And even in Street Fighter, people say Drive Rush is a universal mechanic that skips neutral. How do you approach in a game like Street Fighter, right? What are your ways to get in against a defensive player? You have dashing, jumping, walking, and that's kind of it, right? Besides using special moves or neutral skips or whatever. And in a game like Street Fighter, if the approach tools are too weak, what ends up happening is that the right thing to do in neutral is nothing. The best thing to do is just sit there and wait and be like, you whiffed, bam, whiff punish, and just hit someone every time they try to get near you. It's the same reason why offense generally needs to be stronger than defense. It's why approach tools in fighting games need to be pretty strong. And it's why if you look at a game like Street Fighter 6, they did make those options strong, right? Drive Rush is clearly a very powerful approach option, particularly in a game like Street Fighter 6, where if you're stuck in neutral against a character and you can't get in, every time you block a projectile or normal, you could be losing drive gauge. Anytime you get whiff punish, you're getting punish countered, which means you're losing extra drive gauge and your opponent's getting a better combo. You know, truly the neutral can be very devastating if you're not able to get in against a character, right? And if the best answer in a fighting game is, well, I can't approach, I need to do nothing, the fighting game is probably not going to be very interesting, right? It's why offense also needs to be strong. If the best answer is, I'm on defense, I just hold this down back and every overhead's reactable, every throw is techable, no action can happen. We just walk back and forth and nothing happens the whole time and it's a nothing game. You need offense to be good. Secondarily, I think like a lot of fighting games have put in strong defensive mechanics or made blocking good in their games. Parry is so ungodly. Like it's the most powerful block. It's better than holding the block button in, like basically every other game. In the context of the rest of the game, having a strong defensive mechanic like that makes sense because the offensive mechanics are strong. The neutral options are strong. The neutral skips are strong. The zoning is strong. Like, there's all these good things that you can do in the game. And I think the game being tuned that way makes it a lot of fun. And it means that the power level of the game can be quite high. It's why when someone does stuff all of the neutral skips, they stuff your jump, they stuff your dash, they stuff your drive rush, they stuff your DI, they stuff that. When someone does all that, it's really impressive, not because it's easy to do, because everybody can stuff every approach because the approaches are weak. It's because the approaches are strong, and when players do react to everything, it's like, oh my gosh, they're so good. And when people do play that solid defensive wall play style, it's because they're really that impressive and they have a good read about their opponent, and not because the game is so slow that any approach is just easily stuffable. Fighting games are T-sided. Well, do you put it like that? I'll take it. Yeah, that'll work. DJ has peeker's advantage. That's also true. I think most people probably agree that like a DJ drive rush is pretty ham. They can be too overtuned, but in general, they're fine. And you know, if they're too strong like a DJ drive rush, they'll probably get changed. Also, some of the drive rushes in Street Fighter are not that strong, right? There are plenty of like Cammy or Manon. Like not every character has access to that. I don't need Cammy to have DJ's drive rush. Like fucking, I don't want to play the game if that's the case. You guys can play that. I'll go play fucking something else. I'm gonna go play TFT. Yeah, or Zangief with DJ's drive rush or something, right? Like the horrors of the world are like why I go to video games. It's an escape, right? I don't need them to be there. In the same vein, people are like saying that most modern games have less emphasis on footsies and more universal neutral skip mechanics. Street Fighter V invented everything puts you back to neutral always. Things not giving you pressure and resetting back to neutral is a kind of like a modern idea. Do you have a plus on block cancel from a normal? Sure. Your buttons can be canceled into V-trigger for plus frames. Let's say you block the sweep into V-trigger and they get plus frames and you hold down back for your life and they walk up and they hit light punch and light kick together. Then you get ejected 800 feet from each other back to neutral. And you play more neutral. I was there. Now, people did not fucking like Street Fighter V. And like people complained about the neutral skippy aspects of it, which existed especially more in the earlier parts of the game. But eventually it became like the game where everything just resets you back to neutral. That's like a recent modern game. Like in old games, every time you got hit, you got put into some nasty position. In modern games, they've definitely been like, you got hit, that's our bad. I know that the round has not been going well for you so far, and you've made a lot of mistakes, and you don't want consequences for your actions. So we're going to put you back to neutral, set you down right there, and just, it's like, you know when you fall off the map in Mario Kart and they just put you back up like this? They're going to reset you on the track here, you're back in neutral. I hope that goes well. Strive wall breaking was literally them being like, you got hit and fucked up. We're so sorry. Not only can you escape the corner and not be here anymore, we'll put you back to neutral. How does that sound, buddy boy? You okay with that, champ? Wait, you all right, sport? We'll get you some ice cream after. And then they recognized that was not so good. And now they're like, you got wall broken. Now your opponent's building burst gauge, which they can use to extend their pressure with wild assault, which also steals your burst gauge. And it gives them a hard knockdown. And they can loop pressure with both roaming cancel and burst gauge back and forth and put you in infinite block stun. Crank your wrist the whole time. And then at the very end, they hit you with one thing and you're dead. They're like, we're so sorry that before we reset you back to neutral. Let's make it way more fucked up. If you can't open up your opponent, they get upset at defense. If they get opened up too easily, they get upset at offense. Like, it's all kinds of stuff. The reality is that these neutral skips, system mechanics or otherwise, have been strong in like every generation of game. They're not even man-made. They're like naturally occurring. You may be like, Sajam, you've talked about this 15 times. Why are you talking about this? The reason is somebody makes a tweet like this or says something, and then everybody on the platform is allowed to say whatever they want about this concept, this idea, or this decision. If I say nothing and I read hundreds of people being like, yeah, you know, neutral skips are so silly now. I've been playing fighting games for the last 7 days, and I can tell you it's never been worse than it is now. How will anybody else even know like what's reality or not? Like, great example. Infilament made the netcode article, right? Before the netcode article existed, nobody knew what rollback was at all. It was very hard to like discuss with people how rollback worked. These days, that resource exists. Everybody just knows how rollback works. You can just go read about it, and it's very easy to understand how it works. So when people say silly, stupid things about rollback, you can just reference cited information presented by people who've worked on rollback, explaining how it is, and then you can just be like, no, that's not how it works. Here's an example. If you don't have something like that, right? If there's not an example that's like, this is how this concept actually works. If I don't boot up and say, hey guys, you know, neutral skips are pretty normal, right? Like all fighting games have them. Somebody out there will say neutral skips are new and really bad in modern games and were not a problem before in the same way. And someone else will be like, I don't know any better, so I'm going to assume this person is correct. All right, I haven't played fighting games a long time. That must be true. So that's why you got to boot up and fight the good fight and be like, well, actually, go right past that neutral. Don't stand there like a dog and die in the middle of the screen. Skip the neutral.
Waiting for the YouTube upload is a neutral skip.
That's true. Listen. He's got his little Santa hat, and then he's got a little cloak. It's a little sweet guy. There he is. Then this one right here, he's looking up at the camera. He's trying to get treats here. And the little hat pulled forward. What a cutie. He's really good at wearing outfits. He always gets food, so he's really happy to wear anything.